Well, today's theme for this pastor's school is once again Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work it heartily, do it heartily as for the Lord and not for men. You know, I had a kind of a rough start in life. I was born a faceless freak, a very severe double cleft lip and palate, strangled to death on my own tongue 4 times by 13 months old. Put my mother in an insane asylum. My family couldn't deal with the little freak, so they dropped me off at the hospital where I was born and left me there to die at 13 months old. But how many of you realize when God's got a call on your life, you can't stop Him? You can't stop Him. So God moved on the doctor's heart that delivered me and went to the asylum where my mother was. My mother told me all this when I was 23. Talked her into signing me away so they could experiment on me. First thing they done was took a little baby lamb, cut its roof and gums out, and sewed it in the hole in my mouth where my upper plate and my gums were supposed to be, but were not there. Of course, my body rejected the animal parts, so they took another one, and they did it again and again and again and again for about 4 years. And Mother said when I was about 5, God blessed it, and my body accepted the animal parts, the lamb's roof in my mouth. I said I'd never speak where anybody could understand me. Pastor Walter tell you now they can't shut me up, amen? But I was already a clinical drug addict by age of 4 or 5 years old, because they started doping me up when I was 13 months old. About the time God blessed the roof in my mouth and allowed it to stay, I just lost all my monitors. Amen. They started letting me go home for 2 or 3 days every 6 to 8 months. My mother had been molested from the age of 3 till she was 15 and a half very viciously, and she had extreme mental issues and was a prescription pill abuser and an alcoholic. Around when I was 6 years old, she came and got me for a weekend, went home, had some guys, they brought some more whiskey over and got her drunk. I went and hid in the closet. That's actually where the whiskey song originated at, was in that closet with the door closed, writing on a pad with pencil my griefs. I couldn't talk it out, so I'd get scraps of paper off of grocery bags and write down my problems, my freaky stuff. The next night, Mother had a pint of orange flavored vodka, and she passed out, and there was still half a bottle left. I took and drank that half pint of vodka and blacked out my first time. Pretty much an instant alcoholic right there, 6 years old. She stole me back from the hospital when I was 9, stuck me in school, a little stick boy, intravenously fed most of my life. They put me in the 3rd grade and had a gang of bullies. Supposed to be in the 5th, 6th grade. They flunked out. It's Oklahoma, what can I say? Amen. They're still in the 3rd grade, but they towered over me like giants. And they didn't like the fact that the teachers was helping me and paying a lot of attention to me. So they devised a game called Beat the Freak, and I was the freak. 4 or 5 times a week they'd catch me on the way home from school or on the way to school and drag me under a bridge or out in the field and just beat me half to death. I was taken in to be castrated 3, 4, 5 times, I don't know how many. But my mother and grandmother would pray the swelling down, and they never castrated me, but I was never able to have children. I came home from a real bad beating one day, and I snuck in the house. I didn't want Mom to see how bloody and messed up I was. And I snuck in the bathroom to check myself, see if I need to go to the hospital and steal some of Mom's pills. I'd taken all of mine, prescription pills. And while I was standing in the bathroom, going through her medicine cabinet, she hollered at me. She said, "Gino, before you go to the cow pond, go check on your bed. I got you something." is we were on welfare. We was poor white trash. Our father had run off and abandoned us when I was about 4 years old, me and my 3 older brothers and my mother. And so it was the first of the month. She had got her welfare check. I came out of the bathroom, hugged her neck, still couldn't talk, was never supposed to talk, anybody would understand me. Horribly ugly. I went in the bedroom. There's this black box laying on the bed. She said, "Bring it here." She was in a wheelchair by then, crippled with rheumatoid arthritis, kind of twists and mangles your bones. And I picked it up, carried it in there, and she said, "This is a portable 8-track tape player." She said, "They just invented them. It's about 1964, 65. I think it was 65. And she said, "You know, last night before I went to bed," she said, "I seen a documentary on TV about a man named Mumbling Mel Tillis." And she said, "You know, he was abused so bad as a little kid that he stuttered so bad he couldn't talk, neither. And you know what?" she said, "His mother convinced him to learn how to sing his words out so he could at least communicate." And she says, "You know what? He did. And now he's all grown up." And she reached in a wheelchair and pulled out an 8-track tape, Mumbling Mel Tillis, country and western legend, superstar. And she grabbed me and pulled me right up to her. And she said, "Why don't you learn how to sing your words out? And maybe someday you'll be a star." I said, "What?" You see, God's hand was already, he'd been working on my life since before I was even born. He was involved in my deformity because he knew he would have me doing what I'm doing, what I was created to do in jails and prisons right now. And he knew that he would get the glory because I'm unable to do it. After that head-on collision 20 months ago, I can't hardly hear nothing. And so whenever I sing, it's even 100 times more horrible to me than it used to be. But anyway, I got busted at 10 years old for breaking and entering. I was already on street drugs, stuff like that. A buddy of mine that turned me on to marijuana, his name was Nelson Moore. He was crippled with polio. His right leg was 6 or 7 inches shorter than his left leg, and his left arm was about a foot shorter than his other arm. And we were just two little freaks, so we made pretty good friends with each other. Anyway, I'm on probation. Now I'm getting in trouble. Breaking and entering, I'm on probation. Let's move up to my 13th birthday or just before. Still on probation. Mom and her boyfriend, Homer Abshar. That's hillbilly right there. You know that's right. Homer Abshar. Anyway, we went to the Rhinestone, American Legion Club, where they had a live band. Mom liked honky-tonks with live bands in them, and I did too. That was my first live band experience, and it really made an impact on me. We went through 3/5 of vodka, and they were too drunk to drive. I said, "I can do it." Yeah, I made about 5 miles, and here's the red light. Highway patrol pulls me over. I had an ounce of Colombian Red Bud in my pocket. I hollered over at Homer and rolled the window down, and he was so drunk. He just went, "Ooh." I said, "Homer, roll that window down." He just reached over and only rolled it down about that far. So when I threw that ounce of pot out the window, half of it flew back in all over him and the floorboard. But the baggie went out, amen. I wish you could have seen the look on that cop's face when he pulled up there and seen this little kid sitting on the edge of that seat of that 1-ton International truck. I still have my hand on the shifter. And he says, "Roll that window down, boy." And I rolled the window down. He says, "I thought he was going to ask you for a license." He said, "Come on, get out of that truck." And Mom, Homer still passed out. Mom with a fifth of vodka between her legs. And I'm thinking, he's going to find that pot, and I'm going to be in real bad trouble. But Homer's inside light didn't work. And when he put me in the cop car, he went and drug Homer out, put him in the front seat, Went and got Mom, drug her out, put her in the back seat with me. And went back and locked the truck up and came back and got in his car. He never did see the weed, amen. Get to the jailhouse, there was nobody else in the jailhouse. There's Warwick, Oklahoma, had one flashing yellow light in the middle of it. The courthouse right by that. Put me and Mom in the same cell up on the second floor and put Homer in a holding cell down in the bottom. Come to find out, he knew Homer. Homer operated the road grader and fixed the road by that Cots ranch every time it rained. Anyway, Mom ran out of cigarettes. I was smoking 3 packs a day by then. She smoked 5. Just to let you know what that'll do for you, her heart exploded when she was 52 years old in her sleep. The day after she told me about my life, my childhood. We ran out of cigarettes. Mom passed out. It was cold. The window was open up there. I reached in my pocket to stick my hands in my pocket to warm them up, and there was 5 big hog legs rolled up in my breeches pocket and pink reefer rollers. You know, it's like smoking joints rolled in grocery bags. I lit one of them up, standing by the window trying to chase out the fumes. Next thing I know, Mother hollers, "You're smoking one of them left-handed cigarettes, ain't you?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am. Give me one of them." I was like, "Mom, this ain't like Raleigh's, you know." Anyway, I never seen my mother laugh too much in her lifetime. But we laughed all night long. Amen. Standing by that window smoking them potatoes. Can't believe the cop never came up there and smelled it. Anyway, next morning they let us out. They let Homer out first. He went home, got money, and come back and bailed us out. Back then you could just put up bail. You didn't have to go to court, just forfeit your bail. But it wasn't very long after that that the PRO found out I got a DUI. And took me before the juvenile courts. They declared me incorrigible and a juvenile delinquent and sentenced me to my 18th birthday at hard labor in a juvenile prison farm. I had just turned 13 years old about a week before that. Get to the juvenile prison farm. They let me take that 8-track tape player with me in my tapes. Amen. And they let me keep it, and I kept working hard. Whatever you do, work hardly as for the Lord and not to man. I didn't know. I kept trying. I was bound and determined to learn how to talk for some reason. Well, the Hispanic inmates there didn't like the little freak, and they took up where the school kids left off and beat me down every day out in the yard. I'd come to every afternoon in a puddle of my own bloody mud. Guards loved it. They were gambling on it. That went on for 8 or 10 months, maybe a year. And then when I started coming to out there in my little puddle of blood, it wasn't just me by myself. There was 2 or 3 of them knocked out and tore up too. I was learning how to fight. I was learning how to hate. I was learning how to be cold-blooded. Another 5, 6 months went by. Only 3 of them came out to beat me down. I took care of business. They never bothered me again. But I had learned how to make the world's best hooch. Amen. Guaranteed blackout every time. Well, they put me out in the dadgum barn milking 265 head of cows twice a day. And I had to buck all that hay. That's where I got strong at, was bucking all that hay and cleaning that barn out. So I would black out in my cell block on my world's best hooch and whip everybody in my cell block. And so the guards would drag me out of there and drag me down to a room and beat the hell out of me down there. They got to doing that real regular. I decided I was going to die in there if I didn't get out. I found a little file out in the barn, and I worked on that window for 6 months. And finally one day in the middle of January, in the middle of a blizzard, at 1:20 in the afternoon, we was in the chow hall. I stuck a butt end of a butter knife, plastic knife down my throat, puked all over my plate and all over the table. They was either going to take me to the hole or they're going to take me back to my cell. They took me back to my cell. Took me about 15 minutes to finish piling that grate off in the window corner off. I threw 3 pair of breeches on, 3 shirts, 3 socks. I couldn't even lace up my shoes. And I grabbed the coat and I grabbed that 8-track tape player and a box of tapes. And I escaped through that window in that blizzard. Jumped a 7-foot electric fence, got hung up on the wire, and it just flipped me on the other side, knocked the breath out of me, and scared the bejeebers out of me. Anyway, I managed to get right up, and I just took off running hard as I can. And you could see the stuff flying up in front of me, and then I'd hear the shots. They finally seen me and was shooting at me, and I just, gotta go. I ran from about 1:30 in the afternoon till after dark before I finally hit the woods, and I collapsed from exhaustion in the middle of that blizzard. 2 of the inmates had seen how I got out, and while they were chasing me and shooting at me, they escaped too. Now, how they could know where I was in the middle of a blizzard, in the middle of the night, you know that had to be God, but they found me curled up by a tree. I believe God had that to happen so that I would be able to save their lives. They were a lot younger than I was. Anyway, we went hungry for 5 or 6 days, carrying that 8-track tape player. We hopped a train, made it to Clovis, hiding out in a pile of shipping crates in the middle of a train yard in Clovis, New Mexico. I told them 2 other guys, Monty Bass, Mike Woods, and stay here. I'm going to go try to sell this 8-track and get us some food. So I made it into the town of Clovis, and found a pawn shop that was open. I walked in there and set it up on the countertop, and with everything I had, I just looked at him. I said, me and my brother's been hungry for 5, 6 days, hadn't had nothing to eat. I said, I need to sell this for as much as I can get. And he just looked at me, and then he looked over my shoulder, and he looked back down at me, and he looked over my shoulder, didn't say a word. He just cranked open the cash register and handed me $75, and then pointed over my shoulder, and he said, you better be careful going where you're going. And there I was up there on TV, escaped felon, armed and dangerous. We had robbed a farmhouse and got some guns, stuff like that. So I managed to get back to the woodpile. We managed to get on another train, and I stopped at the store along the way, got bologna and potato chips, bread. We got a full belly in that woodpile before we left. You talk about Albuquerque. That's where we ended up in, was Albuquerque. Got in a bunch of trouble, got away a bunch of times. Ended up in the Manzana Mountains up there. There's a summer camp up there. Of course, in the middle of winter, there wasn't nobody there. We broke in, hid out there for a while. And then went outside for whatever reason, and there's footsteps on the porch in the snow. And I went back in and said, look, there's somebody coming around here, we gotta go. So we left the mountain. It was cold, it was bitter cold. Actually, Monty Bass lost a thumb and this finger here and one of his toes to frostbite, stepping in through the ice and the water. But anyway, I said, God, we're gonna die up here, if there is a God. And as a thought came into my head, he said, better is it to turn yourself in and live to fight another day than to die up here like wild animals. And I thought, man, that's for sure. So I didn't know it was God. Amen. I do now. So I went back, told the guys the same thing what I'd heard, and they agreed. We walked off the mountain. Didn't take the cops 30 minutes to get us. Went to jail. They separated us. They put me in a cell block, in a cell with other juveniles. And wasn't very long. not even probably 15, 20 minutes, I hear a bunch of whimpering and crying from around the toilet stall. There's a wall, and then behind it was the toilets, and whimpering and smacking, somebody slapping somebody, and I knew it was bad. I had been drugged in a boiler room and raped when I was 6 years old at the Will Rogers apartment complex, and I pretty much knew something was bad was going on back there. So I went around the corner, went around the wall, and sure enough, he was fixing to molest that little kid. And I tore him up.
Amen.
I tore him up bad. So anyway, here comes the cops, and they took him out, and they took the little kid out. Everybody told them what happened. They left me in the cell. They didn't take me to the hole. And the next morning, Mr. Gator, up here, get your stuff, let's go. And they come and got me, took me out of the cell, out into the garage, and opened up the back of the van, and there's Monty Bass and Mike Woods already in the back of the van, and told me to get up in there, and I was in shackles, was all in shackles. And they drove for about, I don't know, a good piece, and they stopped the van, opened up the back. We're on a side road. Told us, get out, come on, get out. We got out. They took the shackles off of us and handed us a clean set of street clothes. I said, get back up in there, change your clothes right now, hurry up. So we got back in the van. I told them, I said, they're taking us out to kill us. I said, don't change your clothes, you know, don't kill us in these jailhouse garb, you know. And then that voice, that thought said, no, change your clothes and hurry up. And I said, well, let's change our clothes. So we changed our clothes, and boy, no sooner than we get them changed, they stopped the van and opened up the back, and we was at the Greyhound bus station. And they pulled us out of the back, slapped the envelope in each of us' chests, and said, there's a bus ticket to each of your hometowns. Get out of here, we never seen you.
Amen.
That's a fact. That's a fact. So anyway, I made it back to Oklahoma. I made it back to my hometown. I decided I wasn't going to break into houses anymore to get food or steal guns or money or anything like that, because I didn't want the cops knowing I was in my hometown. I'd found an abandoned oil rig yard with a rack of pipe across, and I had me a hideout under that pipe rack. And I've been another 4 or 5 days, a long time without eating. I'm walking down the edge of town. Hunger pain hit me, and I had just walked past these kids out in front of their house, and they said, hey, you know, and I said, hey, y'all. Then I got hit with a hunger pain, went to my knees, and I said, I'm gonna go ask them kids if I can talk to their parents, ask for some work, get something to eat. So I walked back over and I said, can I talk to your parents? And they said, well, we haven't seen them for days. The boy was about 16. I'm pretty sure he was a lot uglier than I was. Never seen a kid that ugly before, amen? Must have wore size 16 shoes. His feet was built longer than his legs. His little 15-year-old sister was 8 months pregnant. The 11-year-old sister standing up on the porch, and I said, you ain't seen him in days? He said, nah. I said, man, I was hoping to talk to him, get some work. I said, maybe for something to eat. I ain't eating days and days. And that little 11-year-old girl said, what? You ain't eat for days? She says, come on in here. We still got lunch on the table. Come on in here. Just get in here. And went in there. Sure enough, she fixed me a plate of chicken fried steak and mashed taters and gravy and corn on the cob. And it didn't take me but very long to figure out the little girl is the one that cooked the meal. Okay? And she just waited on me hand and foot like I was the governor or something. And anyway, ended up going to the living room and watching some TV, and I fell asleep on the couch. And in the middle of the night, I woke up. Something woke me up. And the lights are off, and I got cottonmouth real bad, and so I'm going to go down the hallway to the kitchen and get me a drink of water. on my way when I started walking, I stubbed my toe on the coffee table, about broke it, man. And anyway, got halfway down the hall, and I hear this commotion in the kitchen. And here it is again, this whimpering, and please don't do this, please don't do that, and gruff sounding voice. I got to the door to the kitchen. I just peeked around the door there, and there's this like 6'8", 7 foot tall beanpole dude had a 10-inch butcher knife to that little girl's throat and had her bent over in drawers down to her knees, and he was trying to get his drawers down. And I'm like, I'm not having this. So I just took off and bulldozed that big old dude and slung her to the left. And I told her, get out, get out, get out. And she pulled me up the ditches and run out the back door. And then here he comes after me with the butcher knife. And I'm like, oh crap. And so I took off running back down the hall, but I remembered the coffee table. Yeah. And I jumped the coffee table and he didn't. And all of a sudden you hear this gurgling in the floor. And then the light comes on. Here's the other two brothers, the brother and the sister, the older one. And there's this dude laying in the floor with that 10-inch butcher knife sticking out of his chest. And he died right there. And I was like, y'all, I can't be part of this, man. I cannot be part of this. I just escaped a prison for him. I said, they're looking for me badly. I said, this ain't gonna look good for me. And they said, well, we already called the cops. You better run now. Out that door I left, man. Well, let's roll up about 8 years later. I come back from Mexico. By the way, a week later, after that little girl incident, once again I hadn't eaten for a long time, and I did the same thing after a belly cramp. I walked up to a house, knocked on the door, asked him if he had some work I could do for something to eat or a couple bucks to go buy me something to eat. And he turned around behind him and looked back into the house and nodded his head and said, well, let's sit on my brand new front porch swing and see if we can make a deal. And I was like, by all means, let's make a deal. And he managed to talk to me for 30, 45 minutes, and we made a deal to paint his porch, which had already had a brand new coat of paint on it. But anyway, make a long story short, he stretched the job out for 2 weeks. Finally talked me out of my social security number and my correct spelling of my name. Told me I couldn't go through life with APBs out on me in 3 states. And I need to go talk to somebody. I said, well, all right. He said, good, they're expecting you 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Judge Hagel Branch. I'm like, that's the judge that sent me up. He told me if I ever crossed his path, blah, 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 blah. Well, what I didn't know was they had dirt on that judge and put him away for 20 years. And they told him if I showed up that they better come to the city. Oh, that guy was head of city council, by the way, that old man that answered the door. Yeah. And so they told that judge if I showed up that he'd better come talk to them before he dealt with me. And he left me sitting in his office and went down, and they told him if he didn't set me free and seal my files, they're going to make this information public. And thanks be to God, he set me free. So now, 8 years after the little girl, I come back from Mexico with $175,000 worth of drugs in the vehicle. Once again, that voice. By the way, that old man led me to the Lord, and I got baptized the Sunday before the job was over. But I went back to my drugs and alcohol. I was a hopeless alcoholic and drug addict. And but he led me to the Lord at Highland Park Baptist Church. Reverend Dwayne Randolph was the pastor's name. I turned my back on God, but he didn't turn his back on me. So 8 years after the little girl thing, that voice told me I couldn't be a child of God and keep destroying lives by being a drug dealer. So when I got back to town, I got rid of my wicked partner and gave him his cut of the dope. I drove out in the country and burned all that dope up in a bonfire Sitting there getting drunk on 6-point Pearl beer, burnt that dope up. And so now I ain't got no money, and go to the Clyde's Pool Hall, which was where the mafia, that's who I was working for, was the mob. That's what I'm gonna say about that. And anyway, I managed to shoot a game of pool with a really bad dude, and thank God I won. Amen. And I won $100. So the next morning I went and got me a real nice breakfast at the local Greasy Spoon, and driving up Main Street, going to go to Gaede oil fields and get me a job. I'd been roughnecking in the oil fields a little bit, knew how to do that. And halfway up Main Street, the pawn shop guy set a sign out in front that said, all guitars 50% off. The little voice said, won't you stop in there and look at them guitars? I'm like, I don't know nothing about no guitar. Well, I pulled in there, walked in there and made a deal for a $10 guitar. And I get back in my car and go up, and I stop at the Jiffy store on the way out of town to the oil fields, and come back out of the store with a soda pop, and lo and behold, there's Jerry Tilley in the parking lot in the back of a truck with the concrete finishing crew in the back. And they had taught me how to do concrete several years before that, and I said, hey, I need a job. Y'all need a good hand? Yeah, I'll be at stage stand next morning, 5:30 at the Gate. That's multi-million-dollar oil-rich people's mansions, tennis courts in the basement and stuff like that. And make a long story short, come lunchtime, come on, Gator, get in the truck, let's go down to Sands Motel. They got a real good special on lunches down there. I said, y'all go ahead, I'll meet you there, because I had a big old fat tater I wanted to smoke on my way over there. And sorry about that. And anyway, I parked at the side of the building and went in, and they had already put their order in, and the special was chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes and gravy and corn on the cob.
Yeah.
Woo! So
Good stuff.
I forgot all about the little girl. This is 8 years after the fact, and next thing you know, the waitress brought out everybody else's plate, one pork chop, one chicken fried steak, a scoop of potatoes, a scoop of gravy, and a half a corn cob. And I had put my order in when I walked in. She said, don't worry, yours is coming. I said, okay. And she went back in the kitchen and come back with my plate. My plate had two big old fat steaks on it, and double scoop potatoes and gravy dripping off the side of the plate, and big old huge corn on the cob. And they all got mad because I got twice as much as they did. And I didn't know what I thought, man, this is really good chicken fried steak taters, well, I'll tell you that. Anyway, I wanted to get back out there and smoke the rest of that joint and pick on that guitar, try to figure something out on that guitar before we went back to work. So I gave the rest of my plate to the other guy and went out there. And man, I wasn't out there 3 minutes, and here come this big Paul Bunyan looking dude around the corner. Looked like Elvis Presley. I kid you not, with blonde hair and a cowboy hat. And he's huge. That dude's huge, big feet cut like this, and he's looking at me like he's going to rip my head off. They took me out to kill me when they tried to get the dope. And I told them I didn't have the dope. I burnt the dope up, and I wasn't dealing drugs for you or no other blankety blank ever again. But the guy they sent out to kill me liked me, and he couldn't kill me. He took me back to town. And I thought they had reprieved. Yeah, I got 5 minutes, Pastor. So anyway, here comes the big dude walking around the corner looking at me all bad and like he's gonna kill me, and I thought they took my reprieve away, and this dude was here to kill me. And he walks past me about 10, 15 feet, and he turns around heading straight for me, and I'm sitting in there in my car with the door open, trying to pluck on this guitar and smoke that tater. And he's coming to kill me, and I think, well, I'm not going to die sitting here, you know, in the car. So I jumped out and grabbed my guitar in a defensive hold. And I said, what can I do for you, Bubba? I was a pretty big dude back then, too. And he laughed like, yeah, right. He says, I just seen you had a guitar. He said, wondering, was you a musician? I said, shoot, man. I said, I'd be happy just to learn how to hold a guitar, much less play one. He said, do you mind? I said, no, here, go right ahead. Yeah. Thanks for not killing me. And boy, he tuned that thing right up, bing, 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 and it started pumping on some smoking honky tonk lead guitar, and I was all stone fried, and I started singing right out in the park. Toothless and crooked nose as it was. Directly he stopped picking. I said, man, you're really good on that guitar. He said, you sing really good yourself. I said, man, don't blow me full of smoke. I can't even talk, much less sing. He said, by the way, did you notice anything different about your plate of groceries? I said, yeah, so did everybody else. And he said, you remember a little girl by the name of Vonda? I was like, I never did know the little girl's name at the time. I said, no. He said, well, she remembers you, real serious like. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, she said you saved her life about 8 years ago when her stepdad was in molested. He hands me a piece of paper with a map drawn on it. It says she wants you to come by the farmhouse tonight and for supper. She wants to thank you personally. He said, my name is Billy Bryans. I have a band called Riding High. And he said, I got rehearsal with my band out there tonight. He said, come on out and bring your guitar. And I went out there. Him and his band spent three and a half hours teaching me I'd smashed my finger at work. And they taught me how to hold a guitar like I was playing it, faking it, and sing the Honky Tonk Blues by Hank Williams. Yeah, and then the band left, and it was midnight, and he tells his little wife, who's got 4 kids now, they got 4 kids, sweetie pie, I'll be back about sunup. I'm gonna take Gator to Lawton Fort Sill over to the bar that we're playing in this weekend. Okay, so we got there, and there's another band playing there. He got the guy up there to get me up on the stage and play the Honky Tonk Blues, and I sang the Honky Tonk Blues, and everybody loved it. I was so scared to death when it come to the yodeling part. It was like triple vibrato, you know. I was shaking so bad, and it changed my life forever. So I worked hard all my life. Many years I played with bands all over, learning, working hard as I could to sing, as much as I thought I couldn't sing. And then when I came to church on the street out of prison in 1994, finally in 1999, Pastor Walt invited me to help him at a jail service one time. I've been in there ever since. I was on a gate pass for 5 years, and then I got my badge. This truly is a ministry that takes your whole heart. Do it with all your heart. God brought you here for a reason. Amen. Pastor?